What I'm curious to know is maybe break down a little bit more about professional services. Like, what is something about your job that gets you up every day that you really enjoy?
You're just every day is kind of a new day and you get to learn a lot. On the flip, if you're providing those services internally, you get to dive a lot deeper than we get to dive in different organizations. I think that's sort of what keeps me motivated is like, I feel like my team and we make a difference in the businesses across Canada every day. What's been exciting you for 2025 so far?
I think it's really about the opportunity, yes, to use AI for certain things, but also the ability for us to come together, for me as a community, to bring those different experiences together. If you were starting out today, what's something that you would advise maybe an individual on this call or anyone who may be interested who wants to get into the field? Maybe they don't come from a necessarily engineering technical background. What's one piece of advice that you would share? Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this panel discussion focused on breaking the mold, finding non-technical careers in cyber. My name is Sabrina Lavi, and I'm joined by my colleague, Kim. I'd like to note that our colleague, Jill, unfortunately sends her regrets as something has come up, but we're here to answer your questions and provide you with some insight into our career journey and what we hope will be a really engaging discussion between us and yourselves. I'll start by introducing myself. As I said, my name is Sabrina Lavi, and I am a senior communications advisor within the Ontario Health Cybersecurity Centre. As a communications advisor, my role is focused on doing communication for the center itself, as well as our information security and cybersecurity defense teams. I help out with everything from security awareness to incident response. Kim, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sabrina. I'm really excited to be here today. And as you said, we're going to hopefully have a very engaging discussion. So please do send in any questions you might have. My name is Kim Schreader, and I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Professional Services at Telus. I have what I think is a pretty fun and unique role because I have the opportunity to work with Telus customers on their cybersecurity journey. So whether that is looking for their security posture, security awareness, if they are responding to an incident or a suspected breach, if they need to be PCI or payment card industry compliant. So I really, I feel blessed that I get to work with customers in all different verticals across the country and help them in their security journey.
That is a really unique role, and I'm really curious. So, how did you get started in?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I actually came through professional services a little more broadly, although my educational background is in criminology. So I would say that when I was trying to decide what I wanted to be when I grow up, which I'm still might be trying to decide what I want to be when I grow up, I would say I was influenced by things like CSI, Criminal Minds. Like that was really more where the criminology side was interesting. Cyber was just starting to kind of take off at that point. Um, and so, yeah, I started off in professional services, focused on some cyber contracts, but also project management, information management, as well as business intelligence. And so, as I continued to learn more about these industries, I just kept feeling myself gravitating back to cyber and being really interested in where cyber was going and how fast it was growing and how these things like taking business intelligence and insights and applying them in cyber was predictive and trying to see where things were going, and it's just like ever changing. So really it just kept me intrigued, and it's to me one of the fields where it is changing always so rapidly, so it's really easy to stay sort of really interested and passionate about where it's going and how we can protect businesses in Canada. How did you get into the industry?
So, similar to you, it wasn't a clear path. It was actually, I kind of fell into it. So, I started doing public relations for a Canadian technology company, and I had the opportunity to jump in to support one of the business units or enterprise security team. So, doing more of that traditional media relations, press agentry, content development. And then within the organization, we acquired a small to medium-sized business cybersecurity company. And there's a lot of opportunity to get involved in product and marketing. And so I saw a role come up that was focused on more of the brand content work. And so I put my hand up for it, went through the application process and was successful. And within that time that I was in that role, I learned so much about from the sales, like from the beginning all the way to the end, to the work that marketing does. And so for me, that was a really great opportunity. Lots of chances to work on things that I ordinarily wouldn't have. I've worked on things related to the Jurassic Park movie, which was so cool, doing a lot of the creative and brand work, advertising product, but then also getting to understand the business and how individuals who come from it from different areas bring their backgrounds. So working closely with legal on matters of IP, working closely with individuals who are at that sales, who work in sales, and understanding how all these pieces come in together. And that was really helpful for me to see that cyber really isn't technical. There's so many elements to it that make up the industry. And depending on where your aptitude and interests are, there are opportunities. So again, similar to you, it kind of just fell into it. But as you said, as it continues to grow, there are lots of opportunities for individuals who may not come with, a threat intelligence background.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm curious to know is maybe break down a little bit more about professional services. Like, what is something about your job that gets you up every day that you really enjoy? Because it's definitely not par for the course.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's the ability to, like, I think so. Security is always changing and resourcing is always going to be an issue. And we've always got say the good guys on the business side and you're trying to protect your business. And then you have these threat actors that can dedicate a lot more time and resources. And so for me, my team acts as an extension to other teams. So whether it's a mid-market or a public sector or whatever it might be across Canada, where we get to bring that expertise, and in some cases, we provide professional services to set them up, and then they can execute a new plan, an increased security posture, a new program, a new governance program. And sometimes it's a matter of they will not in the near future have that resource, so we can come in and augment the skill set of their current team so that we can help them fill a gap in their security posture. And I think it's really rewarding because we're helping Canadian businesses secure themselves. It's really rewarding for the team because we are, one time you might be working with a mining company, another time an accounting firm, another time you'll be working with a public sector entity. And it helps us also learn a lot that we can use to then bring across. Like, we see things across different verticals and we can say, we're seeing this happen in the retail sector. This might start happening in the financial or insurance. Like, we should start talking about that. So you're just, every day is kind of a new day and you get to learn a lot. On the flip, if you're providing those services internally, you get to dive a lot deeper than we get to dive in different organizations. And so, that would be sort of the trade-off. But yeah, like I think that's sort of what keeps me motivated, is like I feel like my team and we make a difference in the businesses across Canada every day.
That's really valuable. It brings like meaning to the work that you do. Similar to you, what I really enjoy about injecting communication into information security management really is about boosting our internal organization security posture, the ability to educate and inform our team members. So we've been really radically trying to go beyond just doing the traditional phishing simulations. We're really looking at the education component, and we've seen really measurable results. Ultimately, you have lower click rates, which are awesome, and you have more people saying and reporting, saying, hey, I think this is illegitimate, I want to report it. Those are really good metrics. Why I find that valuable is that communication really can act as that conduit to help break down a lot of those concepts. So traditionally, the way cyber is usually educated is in very factual terms, but bringing in more of that narrative and plain language approach really helps individuals see like, okay, what's ransomware? How does this affect me in my daily life? What do I need to do to not put my organization at risk? And how do I do that in my own personal life? So bringing that personal element in through communication has been rewarding. And then also those efforts help to alleviate the burden of our cyber defense teams. If there's less people falling victim to things, they can focus their efforts on other threats. So that component of it has been really rewarding for myself. One question I want to ask is, and this is something that folks usually shy away from, is what are some obstacles or challenges that you've faced in your career, whether it's in this role or in the past, and how have you overcome them? And I ask this because a lot of the times cyber and or IT in general struggles to get the ear of business in the way that it should. It's a common complaint from CISOs and CIOs. So really curious to know, like, is there a challenge or something that you've endured, and how have you overcome it?
Yeah, and I think, well, so I think sort of what the panel's about, the belief that you have to be really technical and be able to explain things in a very, very technical way in order to, have the credibility to get buy-in to, and I think a lot of the barriers and challenges, I think I self-imposed them a little bit because I was worried that if I went to go have that conversation, but if I got asked a question, okay, well, what if that API does this over here, like what? And then I would sort of freeze and be like, oh, I've gone way too far here. I'm way beyond my technical expertise, that I would sort of shy away or maybe not, put up my hand and say, well, I have a different way of looking at that. I think it's come a long way for me personally in my career path, but I think also in cyber in the industry, I think we have ways to go, but I think we have taken cyber out of it always is the IT team's problem or the technical team's problem. But I think that has been a challenge that I have experienced, but like I said, I think some of it is I was nervous that I would lose credibility in the idea I was bringing forward if I could not like map out the entire security architecture of how it would work. So for me, that's kind of been it's okay to say, I'm going to need some technical support here to bring this to fruition. But here's from my perspective, from the business perspective, how I think we can marry what the business needs to achieve, the objectives of the business, the revenue targets, whatever it might be, but ensure that we're doing it when we're securing customer data, we're securing our IP, we're doing all that. So for me, that was kind of a personal, but also I think a culture challenge.
Yeah, I think that's pretty pervasive and exists in most organizations. To your point about, cyber being an IT problem, I think every organization still faces that. I think really what's going to be the catalyst to change that is to showcase the relationship between things that you do at work to avoid, becoming victim to something, or in your case, to like customers, but also ensuring that people understand how that works in their personal life, like tying it back to that personal element. I think getting individuals to understand that protecting your information is not just within the organization. It's not just a policy, it has ramifications. I mean, think of all the data breaches that happen. I've been a victim of a data breach, multiple organizations here in Canada and the US. And what that's prompted me to do is to think about, okay, how am I going to protect my personal information, things like my SIN credit card? And it's really shifted my mindset over the last 10 years. But I think you're right. It still needs a lot of work. But I think as more individuals like ourselves come into play, and there's that voice to say, hey, there are alternative ways of doing things that maybe consider X, Y, and Z, that becomes really, really imperative. So it's changing the way also the industry thinks too, instead of just being like that one track kind of binary focus.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you've also sort of touched on another sort of evolution that's slowly a tide turning is the shame around, and I'll put falling in, air quotes because you're not falling for something, but I think that as you said, like it's as you arm employees to report things, you're really giving them the context of understanding like, okay, I am important in securing my organization. It's important to the organization. They'll might report things that don't need to be reported, but it also, if you're creating a culture where they report something because they clicked on it and you do it in a way, but I think like I see a lot more in the last 18 24 months of companies coming forward and saying we've experienced a breach and we're sorry and we thought we were secure. But I think that talking about it and the shame is another challenge in the industry as a whole that I'm hoping we're starting to see that coming around too.
yeah, I think taking away the people do feel guilty when it happens to them, and then taking it away allows you to resolve it a lot faster instead of individuals thinking that if they just ignore it, it
Yeah.
goes away. I think that's really valid. Getting back to more of the career piece, if you were starting out today, what's something that you would advise maybe an individual on this call or anyone who may be interested who wants to get into the field? Maybe they don't come from a necessarily engineering technical background. What's one piece of advice that you would share?
Yeah, I think network and make connections and do not hesitate to reach out and, ask that question like, I don't know. Cyber kind of interests me, and you have a career in cyber, and I noticed that you have a, I don't know, philosophy degree. Would you mind grabbing, either if you're local or if it's virtual, like, half an hour of your time? Majority of professionals that I've met in cyber are more than happy to attending events like this, whether they're virtual or in person. um, the best the best thing you can do is build your network and ask the questions, and then that will help you be able to frame how you're going to transfer your skill set, and be able to sell yourself and say, this is why I add value in cyber. And as you already have sort of gone through the prefla of things that you can do, there's lots of opportunity both in the technical and the non-technical side of cyber.
Yeah, that's kind of echoed in. There's a question that Zohair posted in the chat. How can non-technical applicants supplement their resume when applying to cyber roles to better align with technical experience / showcase their technical aptitude and personal strengths? So really, I would punt this back to doing almost like a 360 review of yourself. Look at what skills and aptitudes you have naturally, what you're willing to learn, and align that to different positions within the industry. So if you're someone who likes problem solving, who's interested always in the cutting edge, one of the starter roles is always like a threat researcher. And looking at opportunities and roles that would highlight, maybe there's an area that you may have a research background, perhaps you have an aptitude at constantly staying ahead of things. Being able to highlight those experiences. Another area to help supplement, I would argue, is there's tons of certifications that are available in the industry. So ISACA does a lot. One of the more junior ones is the certified in cybersecurity. I've taken it. I do not have an engineering background. I took social sciences. You can pass that exam. It's really about showcasing that you have an interest and you're willing to do more. Those certifications are really helpful because they get you to start thinking in the way that the industry talks. So the vernacular, the way things are done, and the approach. And then from there, you can go to more detailed certifications, whether you want to go really into the weeds with a CISSP or maybe at the managerial level with a CISM. It really helps to supplement the experience that you would get. And I would also, to answer the question, to Kim's point, really expanding your network. So coming to conferences like this, but also being willing and open to getting involved. So maybe there's opportunities,
Yeah.
whether in a volunteer capacity or maybe it's an internship. Look for those areas where there's a chance for you to get involved and be willing to always put your hand up. So it's, to Kim's point earlier, we all have a bit of imposter syndrome, especially when you're new, but having that willingness to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to try goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah,
One
maybe
question.
maybe some not-for-profits, if lots of not-for-profits could use some extra hands, and as long as you're honest about the skill you bring, and this is my background, I've done some of the education, as Sabrina said, they'd be more than happy to have some support, and it's a great way to build your resume, but also figure out what you really like about the different parts of cyber.
Yeah, I agree. There's another question, and I'll punt it over to you, Kim, first. Did you feel at any time you had a disadvantage because you didn't have a tech background?
Um, Gosh, it's hard to say. No, I don't think to anyone else I was at a disadvantage. I think that I I made sure that I was open to learning about how technology is used, what the intended outcome of technology is, and that's a constant thing. I still am always, attending webinars and doing, coming to these conferences and going to maybe sometimes technical tracks that are what I would say beyond my technical, but I can go and sort of learn, okay, oh, that's what that's supposed to do. So I think having that openness to learn, but like right now, I mean, I have, a pen testing team, an offensive security team that reports to me. I come more from the, governance, risk, PCI, audit background, and I have a team of people that do that as well. I don't feel like I'm disadvantaged to help them be their best every day in the offensive security side, even though I couldn't come in and say, "Hey, let me help you with that pen test," as an example. So, no, I don't think it was a disadvantage because I was willing to be open and learn, and so do a lot of the things Sabrina said, whereas like I'm just open to whatever information, and it was really important to me to understand how things should work together so that at least I would understand what the outcome from the different parts of IT should be.
Yeah, I would echo that, Kim. And to address that second question, anytime there's an area that, let's say, I have no knowledge on, like for example, cryptography, I will go on LinkedIn Learning and do like a brief course just to get an overview. So I
Yeah.
understand when someone's speaking, especially in those high pressure situations where you don't have time to raise your hand and say, give me a lesson, to supplement that. And that has really helped. Another way is also like working, if you are working or know individuals that you can talk to, maybe it's like setting up like a mentorship. That's really
Yeah.
another way to talk to someone and say like, hey, I noticed that this topic, like quantum computing within AI, what's that going to do? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I'm really interested, don't really have a background. So sometimes it's also using your network, utilizing the individuals that you know to help you supplement that information. But a lot of times you can do the research online. Everything is there. It's just a matter of how much of a subject matter expertise you become.
Yeah. Yeah. Great
Um,
advice.
Along that vein, are there any skills or experiences or opportunities right now that you're trying to pursue to help, move yourself forward? You obviously have come really far in your career. You have people reporting to you, manager of people and process. What are some things that you're looking to do even for yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, and we talk about it way too much at these conferences these days, but I think artificial intelligence and how we can understand not only how it's going to be used against us, but how we use it in our own business and how we enable our teams to use it so that they can feel more productive, and how we need to have privacy around AI use and how we need to have policies around it. So all of that. So I've been finding myself sort of gravitating to different webinars around different ways in the industry people are using or highlighting it. I haven't sort of taken a stance on it, but I want to sort of learn a lot. And the other thing that I'm kind of passionate about this year is non-human identities and how we are enabling them in our environments. And they're kind of the thing I worry we're going to have to catch up with. So we're using AI and other automation to automate these tasks like creating records or invoicing or other things, and then they actually become identities in our different systems. So I've been kind of that's been kind of what I've been geeking out about these days, is going and attending. And again, it's about going and listening to different viewpoints. I'm no expert in either of those things, but to go and listen and be like, take the tidbits and start forming my opinion. What's been exciting you for 2025 so far?
I think it's really about the opportunity, yes, to use AI for certain things, but also the ability for us to come together, for me as a community, to bring those different experiences together. Conferences like this are really valuable because it showcases all of, where individuals come and what they bring. For me in communication, it's been really focusing on the training aspect. So how we can evolve our training processes to really empower our team members. AI has been really helpful with that. Again, how we augment and how we go about educating individuals in the era of AI is going to change. The other instance for me is really understanding how AI is really going to play a role going forward and what that's going to mean for everyone in cyber. We know it's going to disrupt industries writ large, but what that's going to mean for us. And so I'm really trying to look at whether it's reading material or going to different conferences, whether they're virtual or in person, to understand what the zeitgeist is talking about, listening to those thought leaders to say
Yeah.
what skills should we be preparing for, because ultimately they may shift. And so it's, for me, it's that kind of tried, tested, and true. Something, it's good for today, but I'm always thinking like 3-5 years down the line. One question that just came up: I haven't been able to find any volunteer opportunities. Any suggestions? So I know that there are many different organizations. I know there's IFC Squared. They have chapters in most of the major cities. So Toronto is a big one. There are lots of opportunities to volunteer, whether maybe it's a speaking engagement, whether it's getting involved in the planning. I have a colleague within my organization, she does that. And so that's one way of getting in. I think the other opportunity could be if you have a chance to connect with someone from this conference and reach out to them and ask. It's always good to use this platform as a chance to build your network out. I'm not sure if you have any other suggestions, Kim, for more of those non-paid engagements.
Yeah, I might even put a post on LinkedIn and say, here's my skill set to date, or here's where my interests have lie. I'm looking for an opportunity to provide that in a volunteer capacity for, a professional organization and not for profit. And maybe someone sees it, maybe somebody shares it, and that could be an opportunity to get it across without having to kind of go sort of door to door knocking. But yeah, any of the professional organizations, that would be a good place to start. They might even have postings for different organizations that are looking for support.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll ask one more question and then I'll leave it open to see if anyone else is interested. Is there one success story or something that you're particularly proud of, something that you've done that's made you realize, okay, I've picked the right area, I feel confident in what I'm doing, kind of that aha moment?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's for me, I thought about this question, and I think it's a few different where you sort of check in on, because I think you're constantly evaluating, and particularly where I'm at, I could, like, Telus is a phenomenal organization internally. They would have numerous threats and numerous as like critical infrastructure in Canada. So, I could go do security on that side as well. So sometimes just sort of checking in with myself, like, is the customer facing side still? And for me, I think it's a series of small little wins. When you have a customer that reaches out and is like, I was like completely overwhelmed, and then your team came in and they helped us understand exactly what we needed to do, and we felt very supported, and they didn't talk down to us. They made us feel like, we got this. I think there's a few like that. I can think of one in particular, and I won't use customer names, but it was for a healthcare client, and they came and actually spoke to the team, like we had a sort of internal event, and really connecting how our team coming together and delivering work. And yes, it was a project, and yes, it was a paid engagement and all those things, but really speaking to how we made them be able to focus on delivering outcomes, health outcomes, to people that were, sick, critical, dying, etc. It was really heartwarming to feel like, okay, so like the work I'm doing is meaningful, and we really are making an impact on the Canadian businesses that we support. So that was one for me. What about for you?
I would echo that. It's when you hear back from customers or individuals that have seen the work that you've done it and give you some kind of form of recognition. I worked on a campaign where we had customers coming to us, and in a previous life when I worked in tech, acknowledging that, like, oh, that campaign was really great. You really showcased this product. I'm going to buy it. Stuff like that really makes you feel that at the end of the day, the work that you're doing is coming together and meeting an end. Another piece of that is when customers would directly come to us and actually give us suggestions. So I've been in a scenario where, we're putting out something for a specific product. Sales comes back and says, our demographic doesn't understand this. Can you explain this more? This would help with, lead gen down the road. And being able to do that, hearing back from customers, that feedback, I believe that using more of that data-driven approach really, it cements what you do, but it also shows that what you're doing is resonating with whatever community or audience that you're working with. So I would echo those comments as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, we have a couple minutes left. I'm not sure if anyone else has any further questions. Thank you. The ones that have been suggested, they're great. Kim and I are definitely open to answering anything that you have. Okay, one more in the chat. How about with one person with no experience? How to prepare the resume? What are the keywords to get into any organization? I can start. So it's no secret that a lot of folks are using artificial intelligence to create your resumes and your cover letters. Just from chatter through LinkedIn, recruiters will tell you that they can tell when it's been SEO to no end. So I think what's really important is to show the authenticity of what you bring. So if you don't have experience, but you may have maybe a certificate, maybe you have an experience in an adjacent field like, more traditional IT, perhaps showcasing what those skills could then translate to a different role. So when you think about in the hiring process, you're looking at a job application, here are the criteria, showcasing how you have the expertise to meet that. So that's really important. And but bringing your authentic voice. And what I mean by that is making sure it doesn't sound that it's been just regurgitated from AI, which a lot of recruiters can. So I think keeping that in mind is really looking to highlight where do you stand out. Going back to what I said earlier, that 360 review, what makes you different? And if you can supplement that with your, through professional education, whether you can supplement it through connections, because sometimes working with your connections can be really helpful. That would be my suggestion. Kim, anything else you want to offer before we sign off?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm not sure if no experience is like actually no experience or like no experience in field. So I'll answer both ways. If you have experience but not in cyber, then to Sabrina's point, like talk to me about transferable skills. I solved X business problem. I was able to problem solve. I was able to, understand business requirements and translate it to the development team, whatever it might be. And then if it's, I'm just coming out of school and I have been blessed that I was able to focus on my studies and haven't had a chance to work yet, then do you have some projects that you did while you were in school that were, quite significant group projects or something like that? I've often seen a lot of people coming out of post-secondary and they'll give a good summation of some of the really cool projects that they're doing, and sort of what you've learned from that. So I think everybody's got some sort of experience. It's just a matter of showcasing it. And I 100% agree. I would rather see a very authentic presentation of who you truly are than who ChatGPT thinks you are.
That's a great note to end off on. Thank you so much, Kim. And thank you to everyone who provided questions. We're really glad you're able to join us. And we do hope you enjoy the rest of the conference today.
Absolutely. Thank you.